Good evening, this is the evening from the New York Times for Tuesday, August 4th, 2026. I'm your host, and we've got a packed briefing tonight. Primary night across 5 states, a potential breakthrough in the Strait of Hormuz standoff, an arrest in the devastating Spokane wildfires, a disturbing look at how Uber fights sexual assault lawsuits, and a whole cultural menu to close out your day. Let's dive in. Polls are closing right about now in Virginia, Kansas, Michigan, Missouri, and Washington state, and the results will ripple far beyond those borders, especially for Democrats nationally. The marquee race is in Michigan, where a bitter Senate primary wraps up between Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, a progressive former public health official, and Representative Haley Stevens, a centrist backed by party leadership. El-Sayed has led in recent polls, and a win would mark a genuine milestone for the progressive left, the kind of breakthrough that Nate Cohn and C.J. Robinson at the Tilt note has so far been largely confined to highly educated, heavily Democratic urban enclaves. But Michigan could change that calculus. Meanwhile, in Missouri's 1st congressional district, we're seeing a fiery rematch. Former Representative Cori Bush, a Democratic socialist and squad member, is trying to reclaim the seat she lost 2 years ago to Wesley Bell, a former prosecutor who positioned himself as a moderate alternative. Bell ousted her in the 2024 primary, and tonight's contest is being watched as a litmus test for the national party's ideological fault lines, not just for the House seat, but for constitutional ballot measures that could reshape Missouri's tax structure and amendment process. Out in Washington state, Representative Marie Gluesenkamp Perez holds one of just 18 House seats rated a toss-up by the Cook Political Report. She's a moderate Democrat who's regularly broken with her party to work across the aisle, defending a rural swing district that voted for Trump 3 times. In the state's nonpartisan primary, she's getting squeezed from both flanks, challenged from the left and the right. And in the 4th district, Republican Dan Newhouse's retirement has touched off a GOP scramble that'll test Trump's influence in central Washington. Money is talking loud in these races. The pro-Israel group AIPAC placed one of its biggest bets of the cycle on Haley Stevens in Michigan, part of a broader primary strategy we've been tracking. And in New York, a seismic shift. Ronald Lauder, the billionaire cosmetics heir who for decades functioned as a one-man bank for Empire State Republicans, funding term limits campaigns, lawsuits against gerrymandered maps, pouring nearly $13 million into the 2022 cycle that helped flip the House, has not given a single dollar this year. His super PAC has gone idle. Nicholas Fandos reports Lauder's children may have asked him to slow the spending. At 82, he's closed the checkbook in a critical midterm year, and the ramifications for New York Republicans are only beginning to settle. Half a world away, there's movement on a crisis that's rattled global energy markets since February. The Strait of Hormuz, that narrow, critical conduit for a fifth of the world's oil, has been blockaded by Iran since the U.S.-Israeli assault began late last winter. Today, a Qatari official said talks to reopen it are in very progressive stages, with draft agreement language circulating among the parties. Secretary of State Marco Rubio acknowledged progress but stressed nothing is final. Iran and Oman, which both abut the strait, have been negotiating how to administer the waterway. Iranian officials say they're designing the accord to ratify their capacity to control the strait and retain strategic leverage they didn't exercise before the war. Here's the catch, and it's a big one for Washington. David Sanger, Farnaz Fasihai, and Eric Schmidt report that under the emerging framework, inbound vessels heading into the Persian Gulf would transit a channel controlled by Iran, hugging its coast. Outbound ships would use a channel near Oman. That would effectively legitimize Iranian control over what was, before the war, an open international waterway, a geopolitical cost for the U.S. even as it solves Trump's most urgent political problem, getting ships moving again. The deal could also pave the way for a broader ceasefire. But the leverage Iran gains? That's the price tag. Closer to home, a grim update from Washington state. Authorities in Spokane County have arrested 37-year-old Aaron Farinacci on suspicion of starting the Old Trails fire, one of 3 blazes that have destroyed more than 700 buildings and forced over 65,000 people to evacuate. Sheriff John Knowles says a witness reported seeing Farinacci kneeling near the ignition site on Saturday. When deputies initially spoke with him, he was carrying waterproof matches and a butane lighter. He's been charged with first-degree arson. The fire weather isn't letting up. Higher temperatures, drier air through the week, with winds forecast to spike Friday and Saturday, bringing back extremely critical conditions. Anna Griffin is reporting from Spokane. Now, a story that cuts to the core of corporate accountability. A 24-year-old Florida woman sued Uber for negligence after she was raped by a driver who was serving a 10-year sentence for a prior rape, a man with previous violent felony convictions. Her claim, Uber should have screened him out. During her deposition, an Uber lawyer asked her if she felt regret for mixing vodka and Adderall that night, what she was wearing, whether she felt abandoned by her father or degraded by her mother. This aggressive strategy, victim blaming dressed up as legal defense, stands in stark contradiction to Uber's public posture as a champion in the fight against sexual violence. Our investigation found this isn't an anomaly, it's a playbook. Let's move through the other major headlines. In Newark, a 41-year-old Salvadoran immigrant, Edwin Lopez Cornejo, died over the weekend at the troubled Delaney Hall Federal Detention Center. The facility has faced intense scrutiny and protests over detainee treatment. ICE confirmed he was pronounced dead Saturday at University Hospital. Mayor Ras Baraka identified him. The New Jersey Center has been a flashpoint in the immigration crackdown. In Washington, a remarkable Oval Office scene. U.S. Attorney for D.C. Jeanine Pirro dropped a case against a man accused of damaging the Capitol reflecting pool's lining, then marched into the Oval Office for a showdown with President Trump. She'd told him Interior Secretary Doug Burgum had misled him with a self-serving cover story for his own mistakes. Trump had publicly accused Pirro of incompetence just hours earlier. Tyler Pager, Glenn Thrush, and Katie Rogers reconstruct the confrontation, Pirro, famously voluble, with her future on the line, calling Burgum an incompetent liar in private. The case drop and the meeting are tangled together in ways that speak volumes about loyalty and power in this administration. Markets are rallying. The S&P 500 hit a record high Tuesday, up 1.8%, blowing past its early June peak and capping a nearly 6% rebound over the past week. Tech stocks led the recovery, buoyed by signs that an Iran-US peace deal might be back in sight. Joe Renison and Aruni Soni report the rally followed a jittery response to new Fed Chair Kevin Warsh's comments last week, comments that confused investors about his commitment to quelling inflation. Colby Smith writes that Warsh is under pressure to clear up mixed signals. Every Fed chief learns the hard way that imprecision moves markets. Janet Yellen stumbled at her first press conference in 2014. Powell exacerbated a meltdown with a misread remark. Warsh wanted regime change at the Federal. He may need a reset first. Dealbook's Andrew Ross Sorkin, writing from the Aspen Economic Strategy Group meeting where Jay Powell, Hank Paulson, Tim Geithner, Janet Yellen, and Neil Kashkari are gathered, says booming corporate profits are driving the bullishness, dampening concerns about war, inflation, and Fed policy. Saudi Aramco, the world's largest oil company, reported a 33% profit surge, $33.4 billion in adjusted net income for the second quarter, versus $25.2 billion a year earlier. Higher oil prices from the Iran war propelled the jump, and Aramco used pipelines to work around Strait of Hormuz disruptions. Lisa Friedman reports from London that by some measures, this is Aramco's biggest quarterly profit since 2022. A public health emergency is accelerating across Africa. An invasive, malaria-carrying, insecticide-resistant mosquito, Anopheles stephensi, that thrives in cities, where malaria hasn't historically been a major threat, has spread farther and faster than even pessimistic scientists feared. Stephanie Nolan, interviewing entomologists in 7 countries, reports a new genomic analysis using specimens from 10 nations shows it's likely too late to eliminate or even contain. Public health experts are scrambling for ways to blunt the risk. Space debris, literally. Early Wednesday morning, around 2:35 a.m. Eastern, the discarded upper stage of a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket that sent 2 private landers to the moon last year will unintentionally slam into the lunar surface. Kenneth Chang reports the impact will be on the moon's side near the dividing line between near and far sides, too dim for naked eyes but possibly visible by telescope. Humanity, once again littering our nearest celestial neighbor. Travel chaos in Europe. The EU's new biometric border system for non-EU citizens debuted with long lines and short tempers. Shonice Sally, traveling from South Africa, landed in Brussels after 23 hours only to face a 5-hour, 15-minute wait at passport control, 6 booths open for roughly 1,000 people. She waited so long her rental car was given away. Gina Smielek and Koba Rikwert report from Brussels that officials insist the rocky rollout will improve and enhance security. For now, it's a mess. Now, a breath. Time to unwind. My colleagues at T Magazine asked a question that sounds simple but isn't. What are the 25 most important sculptures since World War II? They convened a panel, 4 artists and a curator, to debate. Sculpture occupies an odd place in contemporary art, harder to show, harder to sell, often secondary to painting in a market-obsessed business. Yet it's the art the public interacts with most, indelibly part of the global landscape. The pics include Kara Walker's A Subtlety, an immense sphinx coated in sugar, and Christo and Jean-Claude's bright pink surrounded islands in Biscayne Bay, 1980 to 1983. M.H. Miller, Phoebe Chen, Rose Curdo, Julia Halperin, Zoe Pohl, and Michael Snyder have the full list. A family legacy that reads like fiction. Alex DePonte is in Memphis's indie pop scene. His second cousin, Olivia DePonte, writes songs for Warner Chappell Music. Both descend from Lorenzo DePonte, Mozart's most important librettist, the man who wrote The Marriage of Figaro and Così fan tutte, and did more than anyone to bring Italian opera to America. Lorenzo fled to the U.S. under a cloud of debt in the early 1800s, started as a grocer, became a professor of Italian at Columbia, and staged the U.S. premiere of Don Giovanni. 8 generations of American families later, the DePontes are still making music. Dinner table topics. A San Francisco shop called Andon Market bills itself as the world's first retail boutique run by AI. Heather Knight reports on new research from Andon Labs. The bot boss is exceptionally kind and accommodating, like working for a teddy bear with amnesia. Friendly, not very smart, occasionally forgetful. It's Jack Johnson's summer for fans of the calming singer-songwriter. His Frozen in Time anthems, odes to going with the flow, are the soundtrack to a season of hopecore. Our critics have the best clothing stores in New York. And in New Orleans, chef Serine Bey at Dakar Nola is tracing Creole food's origins back to West Africa, doing something groundbreaking. Tejal Rao's review of the soupa kanja, dark, expansive okra stew with fermented locust beans, dried smoked seafood, Gulf crab and shrimp, describes a straight line from Dakar to New Orleans, from soupa kanja to gumbo. What to do tonight? Cook golden fried mushrooms between soft warm buns, a crispy, irresistible sandwich. Read Roberta Recchia's Italian bestseller All That Is Left of Life, a cinematic family drama set in the summer of 1980. Young protagonist jilted by her fiancé after learning she's carrying his child, shame and naivete in 1955 Rome. Stream 30 classic horror movies. Listen to The Cramps, who introduced the world to psychobilly. Henry Rollins and Ian MacKaye were converted at a 1979 show where tables and chairs were destroyed, windows broken, a cathartic explosion. Ian MacKaye, now 64, still calls it maybe the greatest show he's ever seen. The Cramps archive is being revived with help from 2 punk legends. Exercise with a fitness step. Play Beast of Reincarnation, a video game from Kota Furushima, a creator of the Pokemon series, an 18-year-old warrior with amnesia on a violent road trip through post-apocalyptic Japan with a loyal Shiba Inu companion. Furushima chose dog over cat because cats tend to not like accepting commands. Warm up your outdoor space with stylish lanterns and fire pits. Play today's spelling bee, Wordle, and mini crossword. One last thing. Spiders, long maligned as creepy, terrifying, have undergone a remarkable reputational makeover, led by jumping spiders, tiny, fuzzy, busy creatures that look cute on camera, staring intently with 8 penetrating beady black eyes. Unlike the hyper-masculine pet tarantula trade, the jumping spider business is dominated by women. Ecologist Nathan Morehouse says people are